Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Hope you are having an amazing day. It's 4:09 on the clock as we speak. I do have a quick, I guess it's kind of quick. It was actually, I shuffled very extensively, so there was a lot of energy that I was channeling, but I think I have a concise message as far as the preview is concerned. First and foremost, I did shuffle my oracle deck and landed on manifestation. Actually, it kind of popped out, and I was able to actually see the dark side of this card, which is manipulation. And I wonder if you can guess which of the tarot cards that represents. I say it all the time. I'll wait. The Magician card. Very good. Very good. For those that don't know, this is my new oracle deck. It is not currently available for purchase, but it is available for pre-order or pre-interest. If you are interested, you can email me at the address in the description box. Each of the 78 cards represents one of the traditional cards in the tarot, and manifestation is the upright and manipulation is the reversal, more or less, of what is the Magician card. So that's where we're landed. And it's significant for me to say that I did actually see the dark side of it because it kind of popped out. So it wasn't like the most recent selections where it was just the bright side and I was only seeing the white upright version of each card. I actually did see the inversion. So I'm inclined to say that it feels like there could be an either or situation, especially when after that I went and shuffled the cards, and what I saw was ultimately that someone, oh, now I understand, that makes sense. Okay, so someone or someone's, it could be a person, it could be a group, it could be an organization, it could be an entity, whatever it is. There was a really strong ambition to project a lot of dark energy, a lot of dark intentions, perhaps in the black magic capacity, you know, on the most mystical aspect of it all, but on the more practical side, just bad intentions, projecting negative influence or wishes, poor wishes, just a lot of negative energy that was like projected in a really forceful way, like someone launched like a hell of an attack or a hell of a campaign against the target, like as if they gathered all the strength, all the might in their arsenal, every contact they had, every connection that they had, every fiber of their being, every ability they possessed, every spirit they harnessed, like everything that they possibly could was wrapped up into this major campaign of attack against something or someone. And ultimately, they got completely demolished, like ran over and left for dead. That was the result of it. So with all the energy that was invested, the intention that, you know, the force is what the word was, force that was put behind it, what it amounted to was them ultimately being like run down, like run over, you know, tragically. And the phone's going off at 4:14, which is a 9. That was really the gist of it, quite honestly. And now it makes sense that manifestation kind of popped over like to the manipulation aspect of it all, because it's almost like as quickly as the intention was dispatched or launched is as quickly as it was neutralized, something to that effect. And then the King of Swords was where I landed after cutting the cards, shuffling and cutting the cards. This is where I landed. And again, there was some manipulation of the truth. In the upright, of course, the King of Swords would be expected to be honorable, trustworthy, truthful, direct, objective, intelligent, maybe even wise, like all of these things you could expect in the highest frequency. But given I saw that adverse energy, it feels like there was some playing with the truth here, like whether it was an outright lie or just a distortion of truth, maybe someone projecting themselves in a light that was false. But it was very believable, at least for some time. Like it definitely was convincing. What else? Oh, and the other thing, this just to like backtrack to yesterday's message, because this was something that I forgot to say. The other way that so-called like lesser quality business, if you go back and watch the message, was siphoning clientele or customers, like almost stealing customers from the more established entity, was by tarnishing the name of that brand, like maybe starting rumors about it or starting some type of false narrative about the quality of the brand, like, oh, you don't really want that, it says it's XYZ, but actually is it like just throwing some completely false stuff onto it, like it'll have a negative effect or bad side effects, or you can't trust it, or you're not really getting what you think you are, or something along that effect too that I forgot to say yesterday. So I hope you check it out if you haven't. But that's the energy that I'm getting here, where there's just been some use of the word as a weapon, maybe the truth as a weapon, but I feel like even more so some manipulation of the truth or manipulation of reality, even for the purposes of creating some ultimate outcome or ending, which again, it was a fail. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna move straight forward. And if anything, like this King of Swords in the upright is like, to me, given all that I channeled to get down to this, it's like somebody now being completely exposed for exactly who they are, like the truth of who they are, their true nature, their true character, their true identity, everything that all the strings that were being pulled, maybe all the lies that have been told behind the scenes, like people connecting stories now, or connecting the dots as to from what somebody has said to what there's actually evidence for, or what is evident. And someone is like naked in their truth, or about to be, wherever we are with this. Like that's what it's come down to. All right, so I'm gonna give it a quick shuffle and see if there's anything. I know I already cut, but just to refresh real quick, and then let's see what we got. All right. And remember, black magic isn't just putting, spells and doing like, all the nefarious things that seem like a fantasy or like some type of fairy tale or kid story. It could just be lies. It could be using, again, your words to manipulate an outcome. That's just as much of just as much spell work as anything, if not more, depending on who's using it. So it could go either way. Ten of Pentacles here, okay? So big money on the table, family, some type of legacy, which came up yesterday. Maybe some type of, I would say like somebody inheriting a legacy. Or some type of fortune what am I trying to say? Like a beneficiary. Yeah, that's what that Page of Pentacles is. Old money coming into, old money making someone new money, if that makes sense, or like new money coming into old money. The old money being passed down to some new generation or new recipient that ultimately, because that's what the Page of Pentacles is given to me. Like the Ten of Pentacles is definitely old money or generational wealth, but it's new to somebody. Like somebody maybe, you know, yesterday I said something about an inheritance that was withheld or reserved. It may be this connection finally coming into fruition, where something that is has long since been established is finally finding its way into the possession of whomever is in line to receive it, you know. And again, it's new to them, you know. It's new money. Oh, somebody is not happy about it. And that's probably what the great ambition was, to stop this transfer of wealth or transfer of energy that was underway. But like I said, it's like their efforts, it was like a mouse against a giant type of energy, you know, like the Chariot kept popping out over and over again. And it's like trying to step into the way or into the road in front of a chariot and just halting the chariot with just your hands, a hand signal, and the chariot just keeps on going and literally just pummels. Is that the word? Pummels? Plummets? Pummels, I think, the person in their path. That's the type of you know, standoff that was at hand. It's like somebody trying to stop fate with their mere intentions, you know, like, no, it's mine, I don't want them to have it, it's mine, it belongs to me. And it's like, okay, that you can feel that way, but if it is written that this is for so-and-so, or this is assigned to so-and-so, or this has so-and-so's name on it, it really doesn't matter how you feel about it, you know. It's just, you just got to get over yourself. And somebody couldn't get over them. Wow, with the King of Swords again, somebody couldn't get over themselves. They had to do something about it. They had to do something about it. They felt like they knew best, they knew better, they were wiser or more clever or more intelligent to manage whatever this is. Perhaps, you know, they just had a different idea about it, you know, their own strong perception about what should be true, what should be the case. And they tried to pretty much make it their way or the highway, or make their feelings law. And it just wasn't going down like that, you know. And with the manifestation card, like I said, at first it may have been just a matter of just like strong intentions, you know, this is mine, this is, you know, those manifestation methods that people employ, where if they believe it strongly enough, then it must be true, or it must come true. But if it's not in alignment with universal order, then it's really just delusion at that point, you know. And in any way, you may get what you think you are in the market for, but it'll come in a distorted way, you know. It'll come at a great price, you know, either one. And with the Nine of Wands, it seems like I said, somebody used all of the energy. That's one from the 10. And they still look beat down and worn out. You know, like they gave it all, their best shot, all that they had. for a long time at that. And it still hasn't changed fate in the long run, you know, or what is absolute, I should say. What's that? Oh, well, Ace of Swords. There's that on that. What's the revelation about, or the clarity about, other than what I just said? That's definitely keen on that exposure aspect about the King of Swords as well, following this Ace of Swords. I feel like it's literally all of this person's efforts, or this group's efforts, whatever this is. It's all of the efforts that were administered that are being, like, all of the pieces, you know, all of the connections, even the least significant one to the most involved and invested one, or the most intense ambition, is all being exposed or unveiled in some type of way. It's like you and you and you and you, all, like, all the cahoots that was going on, or everything that this person employed, is all being exposed with them. You know, like, nobody is really safe because of, you know, the great lengths that this person just, you know, went to. It's like somebody, this is real specific, but it's like somebody getting, okay, so I said it's like somebody got ran down in the middle of the road, right? God forbid, which I did see the death card, but God forbid they don't survive that. So now all of their things, all of their personal belongings, all of their affairs are left to kind of be sifted through by whomever, you know, or maybe on account of some type of investigation. I don't know, like, I feel like it feels investigative in a sense, but it could just be people, you know, how people have to go through your personal effects and your things, and, like, you don't have no say about it because you're not here anymore. And it's like somebody now, or family, friends, whomever, authorities, whatever, going through all of somebody's personal life and uncovering all of these things that they never knew, or all of these little, you know, intricacies about their character behind the perception or the persona. And it's like kind of astounding, actually. It's shocking to reveal the truth of, like, what somebody was really into behind the scenes, or behind closed doors, or what they did in their free time, like looking at somebody's phone and their text message, and looking at their computer and all of their search history or files that they have stored, and, like, just everything just being like somebody just naked, you know what I mean? Just completely butt ball naked to whomever has their eyes on these things. And like I said, like, they're not here anymore to defend themselves, but they're also not here anymore to defend themselves. So it's up to whomever is encountering this and their interpretation, you know. And it's not a good look, is ultimately what I'm saying. Like, that's something that I say with that, especially with that Nine of Wands. Like, somebody's secret life just being completely broadcasted for, maybe not for the world to see, but definitely in a way that they wouldn't have ever shared themselves, you know. If they had the power to do so, they may have gotten rid of all the evidence, or, you know, did a real good scrub of their life if they had known they might be about to meet some type of demise or fate the way that they did. But they couldn't have any idea, you know. They were completely blindsided, in a sense, by their own ambition. kind of like, and I know of situations like this that happen personally, where you, like, let's say it's a man and they pass away, and then in their wake all these things start drudging up, whether it be like secret kids or secret flings or affairs, like women now coming out of the woodworks, or a woman even just coming out of the woodworks like, he was my man too, type of energy. And it's like, well, shit, did I even know this person? But they're gone. So it's like, you can't even really, it's a real tough spot to be in, where you would want to kind of resent them for their deception, but at the same time, it's like it would be wasted energy. But it kind of leaves a bit of it makes a deep mark, an impression on the psyche, I can imagine, and emotionally, to realize that the person that you thought was one way for as long as you had known them could have possibly been somebody else altogether. Yeah, look at that. The clarity from the illusions, from the mystery, from the veil. It's like something breaking through this facade. Like somebody that had orchestrated their own like one-man show, or produced their own one-man show of who, maybe of different faces, is what I'm getting from this. Ew, it's weird. It's kind of cringy, of like different faces they might put on and take off, and oh, I'm gonna be this person for this group of people, or this person for this crowd, or this person in social media, and this way to my family, and this way to these friends, and that way to my woman or my man. There's that, you know what I mean? Like so many different aspects of a person. And with it being the Seven of Cups on top of the Ace of Swords, it's like none of it was real. And the real of the person was really this dark figure here, like the shadow of them, probably, of which they were trying to hide whole time with all these other personalities and facades. But none of, like, no person in this person's life really ever knew exactly who they were. Not even like their closest friends, their closest family, like even their family and so-called closest friends would be shocked to see like the truth of this person behind the mask, like everything stripped down. And the way that I'm saying it could potentially be exposed, like somebody that was just different to everybody, a chameleon, you know, to a large degree. A shapeshifter. Okay, that puts a different spin on it. And ain't nothing wrong with being like, there's a positive aspect of shapeshifting, which is really just adaptability. But this is, like I said, the difference between manifestation and manipulation. It's shapeshifting for the purposes of deception, like deceiving who you're in front of, maybe even mirroring them or projecting, you know, like that mirror effect of, oh, okay. So whomever they were standing in front of or engaging was pretty much dictated what face they were going to put forth. And a lot of times it was that mirror effect of really just reflecting back to whomever they were engaging, the aspects of that person or that entity, like what they would want to see of themselves, or copying the energy that they were encountering, and almost like mounting it on their persona, like something like that. So when it all comes out in the wash and people start pulling, you know, bringing their stories together and telling this story and that story, it's like, nothing will add up. Nothing will make sense. You know, nothing, there really isn't one singular stream of truth between All of them. Not really. Or it's such a thin string of truth that you will want to even question that much. Like, was that even real? You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. It's weird what I'm picking up here. But this person, like, pretty much just used the power of shape-shifting, and their words, and, manipulating environments, people, situations, is particularly with their words, to bring, fortune to fruition for themselves. And I'm looking back at this now. I mean, what I said still stands in the upright, but it could almost be somebody kicked out of the trust, or kicked out of, like, you're out the will type of energy. Like, somebody's become such a disgrace, or did become such a disgrace in some way, shape, or form, that they've been kind of written out, or not really held at the highest regard to be the beneficiary or next in line to inherit whatever this fortune is. Maybe because they're untrustworthy. So the Page of Pentacles is almost like starting over with just whatever it is that you, maybe even just like a consolation offering, like, here you go, do the best you can, or just whatever it is that they have, something like that. Now that I'm seeing all this, let's see, what else? Oh, Lord, and that's the karma, the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, I saw the Wheel of Fortune earlier, too. Let me move these over just a tad. Oh, man, okay. What's with the Wheel of Fortune? And that also, ironically, like I was talking about somebody that tried to, like, stop fate. This is also that will that's just indomitable, unstoppable. Like, you can't stop universal order. You can't stop that will. It's eternal. And somebody really put themselves in the way of that. And like I said, they just got crushed. They got crushed. Look at this shit. My God. They got crushed. They, like I said, they gave it all they had. But there's no match for fate or karma. It's undefeated. Yeah. Like, fate is undefeated. If it is written, if it is written, it is so. And it don't even just have to be written. If it is spoken, it is so. And I'm talking about spoken in alignment with source and with the highest authority of all. And like I said, we do have the power to co-create within that force, and also have the responsibility of our creativity, which is why it calls to be so careful about what you proclaim and declare, because like I said, it's like somebody wished for something or declared something to be true, and they got it, but it wasn't what they wanted, really. Maybe, okay, so maybe it was like somebody wanted to be all powerful, or maybe all knowing, or something, some level of omnipotence, Well, I guess that is the ultimate level when we talk about omnipotence. But there was some force that was craved here. And it's like they got to taste the flavor of that force, but they couldn't digest it. like they couldn't, it was too big for their vessel. So they got, perhaps, they were endowed with this force and power and strength and might, but it like overtook them or overcame them or something. It's like, okay, in a practical sense, because I actually just watched this, I think this is a good example. I just watched Being Eddie on Netflix, which was phenomenal. I love Eddie Murphy, and just the great legacy that he's living still. And it's like he said that from a young age he would just always speak that, he would just always tell people, I'm going to be famous when I'm 18. For whatever reason, 18 just seemed like the magic number or the magical time. And lo and behold, I think he got SNL when he was 19, so not too far off, but he was already making waves as a teenager before that, famous in his own right, I'm sure. And one of the like streams of what do you call it? I mean, first of all, if you don't know much about Eddie, you should watch it, because you probably have forgotten or weren't even born yet to know just how far back his stardom has stretched and how pivotal it was for Black comedians, actors, Black men, Black stars in general to break out into superstardom in the industry, because he came along, pretty much opened the door at a time when it could only be one, like it wasn't just an ideal or a sense about it. It was like actual, like the only person that had been given a chance to star in movies before him was like Richard Pryor, who was also his idol. And the grossing ceiling of Richard Pryor was something like 20 million or something like that. And here he came and was like hitting the box office at #1 for like 14 weeks straight. And it was the first time a Black leading man had ever done that. And so it kind of set the precedence for what was possible, for the potential of other Black stars to come along and, to reach that success without having to kind of sit on the bench and wait their turn, as how Hollywood is. As it became a shark pool, like, oh, is this the ticket? Well, let me go find my Eddie. Like it was, now everybody can get a shot as long as I can make money off of you. But there was a continuous theme throughout his story about just how grounded he stayed throughout this superstardom. You never really heard too much about Eddie other than his like divorce, and I think there was some like tabloid stuff about him and like who was it, like Johnny Gill or something, which was really strange at one time. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. Or was that Will? I don't know. But anyway, for the most part, you never really heard a lot of drama surrounding Eddie. He's up there with all of the greats, all of the great names you could mention, not just in comedy now, but across the board. He's even a phenomenal musician that you would never know. And somehow he still has kept his head. He even said, like, I never did any drugs. I don't really drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. I smoked a joint when I was 30 years old. Like all the things that he was surrounded by and could have been completely oversaturated with or completely overtaken, maybe even ruined by. I mean, the fame alone by way of the ego could have destroyed him. And somehow he still seems so humble and so, like so grounded and so approachable. And I get that sense in all of his interviews. I get that sense in the way that people talk about him in interviews and how they still like admire him to this day. And also through the documentary, it was like solidified that no, this is just probably who this dude is. It's not a facade. It's just who he is. And so it's something like that where it's like the industry could have completely changed who he was for the absolute worst, with all that power and influence and money and notoriety that he had, that star power that he possessed, and it didn't. But this is the opposite of that. All that to say, this is like somebody getting a little taste of fame, or maybe a lot, whatever the dose was. It was too much for somebody to handle, because it ended up possessing them, and it ended up taking over, like almost overshadowing perhaps the purpose behind their original intentions to manifest or create in the first place, and became like a whole nother entity of its own within the entity of the person, and ultimately became his demise or her demise or their demise, whatever this is that we're speaking about. It could even be the industry itself, you know what I mean, as I'm talking about it, where there should be pure intentions just to entertain people and make money doing it. It becomes so many other dark things behind the scenes by nefarious characters that in some regard don't have any identity of their own, so they siphon and vampirize off of the forces that they encounter, the forces of light that they encounter, and hide their shadow behind it, So all that, but that's what I'm getting at. Somebody called in something massive and they just could not manage it. They couldn't manage it. It possessed them, it overtook them, and then eventually it crushed them. And maybe not even the thing itself, but it was like the weakness of their vessel that couldn't manage the responsibility, and in some ways maybe the burden or accountability for what they ultimately asked for. It's like getting, could even be getting an inheritance and then coming down to a penny at the end of the day, which many stars are no stranger to that. Like he mentioned that too, like at the end of some of the greats, like Red Fox, like Rick James, he buried them because in the end, with all the fame and glory and money they had made, they didn't even have anybody around them that could or would bury them properly. And they didn't have the resources themselves, to do so. So, it's just, that type of stuff is kind of sad, but it's just, like the nature of the game in this realm. It just is. And it's very much the survival of the fittest in that regard. And here we have the 9 of Cups, which is some level of satisfaction here, or being pleased with yourself. Let me see what's with it though. Because like I said, sometimes even with the 9 of Cups, I get that as like a facade too. It depends on whatever else I'm reading. It's like this exacerbated sense of esteem, the type that you kind of have, the air that you kind of have to carry around when you are a star or in the public eye, or you're trying to sell yourself to be a certain persona or sell a certain facade. Like, yeah, it's all good. I'm Gucci over here. Yeah, we living it up. You know what I mean? Like, you got to sell that frequency for the purposes of making a frequency for yourself and around yourself that is marketable, more or less. Yeah. Like that celebrity facade, where you don't really get to be too vulnerable, and maybe some don't really want to be too vulnerable. They actually like to live in the image of the projection more than they care to be authentic, But let me say one more card here. Let's see what, well, that answers that. Yeah, it's a facade. It's a facade to always look like I'm winning no matter what. Like, you'll never see me sweat. You'll never see, how celebrities particular be hanging on to that image of fame, only just more recently in the last few years, like maybe decade or so, has it become more popular for celebrities to share their struggles, you know, or their faults or their low points, you know, as a way to purge, you know, from the illusion, or purge themselves even from the illusion. And it's still not that popular. It's not that widespread. Like, most would want to hold on to that perception of fame and celebrity for as long as they possibly can, for the exchange of what it affords them, you know, the notoriety and the attention and the glitz and glamour. And it's like, you can't, even though trauma is marketable for sure, and that's been a lot of the shift, you know, where it's like, well, I'm gonna tell my story, I'm gonna share my truth, you know, because sometimes it can be beneficial, it can even be profitable. It just depends on the ego of the person, whether or not they see it that way. And here it is, the difference between the manifestation and manipulation. This gives me the energy of somebody that would probably hold on to the facade to the bitter end until they feel like they have no choice but to profit from their struggle. You know, if that's the last case scenario, then so be it. You know, they'll figure out a way to make $1 off of that, or garner attention or notoriety, or, you know, whatever off of that. Visibility, what's the word? Relevance. There it is, relevance from it. But it wouldn't be their first choice. And even with that, with the Five of Swords, it gives still, yet again, this hint of manipulating the truth and the reality for personal gain. So it could be embellishing the struggle, or embellishing the story, or the players therein, or their responsibility within. If they had it their way, that would be like their last case scenario. But it seems to me that if somebody did do that, it didn't fare out too well in their favor, because this is a defeat card, you know, where it's overshadowing this Nine of Cups. Like, nah, you ain't that good. May even be somebody's like emotional wellness or facade cracking to really expose their like their challenges, maybe their mental challenges or emotional instability. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. In a way, again, that they wouldn't want to have exposed, unless, worst case scenario, they could make $1 from it, or get something in return for it. But like I said, it seems like somebody's getting all the exposure without much of the return, or they haven't figured out how to alchemize the energy yet, perhaps because they're not fully authenticated in it and integrated with that authentication. Maybe still lying a bit or embellishing a bit. So it's not really, it never really became the profit that it was projected to be. And, or, like I said, on account, it's like somebody's story now about to be told for them in their absence, and it being told in a light that is not flattering. It's not flattering. Like, they don't even, at least Eddie gets to tell his story, you know. Even Rick James, you know what I mean? Like, how his life kind of ended right after that Charlie Murphy, Dave Chappelle thing. Like, he didn't really last too much longer beyond that. And you never really got to hear much other than his commentary in the skit about who Rick James truly was. So now the legend that lives beyond him is more or less the caricature, you know, and people take from that what they will, but it's not really the man truly, authentically, you know. So it's like that being the surviving legend of someone, not who they truly were. Well, maybe actually who they truly were, but also it being like the caricature, or like the negative light and aspect of that person, perhaps maybe justifiably, if the shadow was never reconciled. It is what it is. But like a Michael Jackson, you know what I mean, where after his death, people have come back to, you know, the love of Michael and celebrating all of his influence and accomplishments in music and such things. But then you still have that aspect of where people like to bring up the negative stuff, you know, that he never really got to outlive, you know. And it's like somebody having all of that going on in the background of their public persona, and now it's all being drudged up and like served up on a silver platter and almost completely overshadowing anything that this person could have been remembered by, especially since a lot of what people remember, they now are in a position to question the authenticity of. You know, it's just a real sad way to go out ultimately. Even if this person is necessarily passed on or this group or whatever is not diminished, you know, it's just a bad way to go out, because it's much harder, even as a legend, to shake the negative talk about you and the dark legend around you. Is like you can talk about all the great stuff about any legend, but you'll never be in a room, as you know, or in a conversation and it not be an undertone or even an inflection of the other stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's unfortunate. But anyway, I will move on. Yeah, literally, I will move on. Six of Swords is moving forward. And Judgment, wow. Okay. Well, like I said, karmic judgment, injustice is underway for not just one person. Of course, you know, like I speak as if it's just one story, but it just, I mean, it's about the legacy that you've lived up until this point. Like, you can't rewrite history, really. You know, like you can move, you can shift and create new memories or make a new impression moving forward, but it still doesn't mean you'll ever shake the past. You know what I mean? Like, even if some of those legends I'm talking about had lived decades beyond their what do you call it, like their like their drama, or not drama, what's the word? It was a word I just heard. Not drama, scandals. Yeah, beyond their scandals. You still have somebody circling back around to, yeah, but remember when, or remember that time, or remember how, you know, like you could never live it down, you know. So that's why it makes the most sense to embrace the shadow aspect of yourself, to confront it, accept it, acknowledge it. It doesn't mean that you have to put it on display for the world or for anyone in particular to see, but a lot of times when there isn't a reconciling with all of you, the whole of you, the shadow and the light, that's the thing that ultimately relentlessly haunts you. You know, that's the thing that you can't run away from, or the thing that will always emerge and say, oh, remember me? I'm still here. I'm still here. And sometimes it happens by way of scandal. You know, it will not be ignored, that's for sure. And in this case, you know, a lot of times I'm speaking of folks that didn't, well, I can't say that because I wasn't there behind closed doors. But what I am speaking of is somebody that used their shadow to their advantage to manipulate energy, to manipulate outcomes, but they didn't present that part of themselves authentically, and they didn't it's like even that was a manipulation. Like, I'm gonna use this part of myself behind the veil, or in the dark behind the scenes, to get what I want. But what I show everybody is this upright, honorable, you know, honest citizen of a man that, you know, like, that is trustworthy and devout and direct and all these types of things. But it's like, it's just a complete deception. is what it comes down to. And this is the season for judgment in all of us, you know, not just one over another, but even the ways that we've deceived ourselves to dismiss an aspect of ourselves that deserves the light or is craving the light, or that creates this sense of guilt and shame, maybe unjustifiably even. Again, that's still just cause for rectification, you know, before before it's rectified for you, you know. So no one's really left behind here, but of course I'm speaking of the most extreme case as from what I channeled in the preview and what has transpired here on the table in real time. This is just a reckoning for those that have used truth as, I don't even know, I would say lies as a weapon and truth as a shield, or maybe vice versa, or maybe not truth at all. I don't know. Because there's so many upright swords, I feel like there was some essence of truth here, but what of it was questionable. What of it was distorted? What of it was someone else's truth? You know what I mean? Or some true in another time or in another frequency or another way, but wasn't really, I don't know, like viable in the moment that it was being used. Like, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm getting at. But anyway, it's definitely the fine line between manifestation and manipulation that is being rectified. You know, it's either a matter of shifting to move forward for another chance, you know, to course correct, or, as I said, unfortunately, as the case in the beginning, it's a matter of meeting your ultimate fate for those that refuse to course correct or shift or change or transform or change perspectives. And you definitely won't continue to employ the same tactics that may have worked in the past. You know, like it's a new era. It just is. So, all right, anything else on this? I feel a bit open-ended. I don't know why. 10-10, that's a confirmed ending, like final, absolute. So whatever hasn't been rectified at this point by way of repentance, reasonably, there definitely is a price to pay for it, you know. And that could have been the resistance as well, like pushing back against the inevitable repercussions or effects of someone's intentions and behaviors and influence. That, again, once, like I said, that wheel keeps on turning and you cannot stop it. And it's all justified, especially when it's of the origin, it's assigned to the origin of the one who administered it. And I know that was probably a terrible way to say that, but I'm pretty sure you get what I'm saying. Alrighty, I think I'm gonna leave it there. All right. Yeah, so thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.